Adobe After Effects makes animating type very easy and a lot of fun. First, I want you to go to Window, Workspace, and choose your text workspace. That's automatically going to open up your character and paragraph panels. Let's create a new composition, Command N, and I'll use the standard HDTV 1080-29.97 format. I think 3 seconds will be fine. Let's name this one Type Basics and say OK. The Type tool is up in the top menu, and if you click on it, you can see there's going to be 2 versions. Right now we're just going to work with the horizontal Type tool, so select that one. Let me bring my comp window up. And all you have to do is actually just click in the composition window, and then you can start typing. And I'm just going to type, this is a line of type, period. I'm going to hit return and do a second line. Okay, and let's turn on our action and title safe grid. So first of all, I'm going to choose my selection tool, deselect my type, then you can hit the apostrophe key, and then I can select my type and move it over to the center. In the paragraphs panel, right now I have center alignment selected. I could go align left, ragged right, or align right, ragged left. Right now we're just going to use the paragraph panel for establishing our alignment. We'll look at some of these other options a little bit later. In the characters panel, you can change the size of your type. You can change the leading or the line spacing. We could change the tracking. So the tracking is the space between characters. So tracking is multiple characters. In this case, it is automatically modifying the space between all of our characters. Now, very often, with English, you need to change the space between just 2 characters. This is particularly important if you have a title. But let's say I just wanted to close up the space a little bit between the O and the F on of. As soon as you click between 2 characters, then the kerning option becomes available, and you can either select from one of the presets, or you can use your option, right or left arrows to close the kerning. But you do have to click between 2 characters for the kerning to work. That key command, by the way, will work for tracking as well. So you just select multiple characters, option, right or left. It also works for the leading. So you can use your up or down arrow to modify the leading. These little buttons on the bottom here, you could make it all caps. You could make it small caps, so you'd have the initial cap large, and then all the rest of them are small caps. This can be very stylish if you like. You could fake an italic if you want. I don't recommend it, and you can also do a faux bold, which is a fake bold. Both of these, it would be better, preferable, if you actually choose a font, a typeface that has been designed to be bold or italic. Particularly with bold, I've noticed if I later try to apply some effects, I have some problems if I've used the faux bold. So it's better just to use a bold type. Same goes for the horizontal and vertical scale. This is considered bad practice. Usually you do not want to change the vertical or the horizontal scale. There are rare exceptions, of course, but generally if you need something that is more condensed or more extended, again, select a typeface that has been designed that way. Proportionally, it's going to look nicer. It always looks weird if you just simply condense the type using the horizontal scale. So not a good idea. Okay, now let's talk about text animators. I'm going to twirl open my text layer in the timeline. I'm also going to delete the second line of text for right now. All right, so I'm making my type aligned left, and I'm going to move it to the middle of the composition window. I'm going to twirl open the layer in the timeline. At 10 frames, I'm going to put a keyframe for position. Then I'm going to go home, take it to the beginning, and then move it off frame. Hold down the Shift key to constrain it vertically so it doesn't move up and down. Now we've got a little bit of an animation. I will select this keyframe and add an easy ease in. I'm going to go into my graph editor and exaggerate that ease in. So now we've got a nice slide in. When you open up the text layer in the timeline, you'll see the word text, then directly across to the left you're going to see animate. If you click on that arrow, these are all parameters that can be animated. One of my favorites is tracking. So let's go ahead and track this out. So when it lands at 10 frames, it's going to be tracked to 0. So I'll put a keyframe for 0. And then when I go back home, I'm going to track it out. I'm going to have to move it off frame further. And now as it comes in, it tracks together. Now that looks a little strange because it's tracking from both sides. So I may want to change the alignment in this case to center. I'll have to reposition it. And I'll probably, yeah, that's okay as far as taking it off. It's off a little far, so I'll move it in some so it doesn't have to travel so much. Now let's see how that looks. It looks a little bit better perhaps. Now let's see what happens if we change it to aligned right. And again, I'll move it over, go off, pull it in a little bit, and now let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that makes more sense. As it lands, then it keeps coming in from the left side. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to put a easy ease in on the tracking so that it's a little bit softer. Let me play it. I'm going to shorten my work area by hitting N so that when I play it and it loops, I don't have to wait so long for it to go around. Now if I want to slow it all down, that feels a little fast to me right now. So I think I'll take it over to 15. Try it again. That feels nicer. Now we could also add, I'm going to select Animator 1 in the timeline and add to it right here. The Add button is. So because you can stack up the animators. And there is a reason why you'd want to do that. It has to do with range selector, which we're going to cover in a little bit. But I'm just going to add to this first animator, I'll add in opacity. So I'm going to have it fade in. So it's going to start, at 15 seconds, it's going to be at 100. I'll go home and I will make it 0. So it's going to fade in as it tracks in and comes into position. Let's add another one. Let's add blur down here at the bottom. As it lands at 15, there'll be no blur, but at the beginning, I'm going to add quite a lot of blur, and let's see how that looks. A little hard to see it, but see if I slow it down, then you can see it. Okay, double check that position. And I think I will also pull this one out, slow that down. Let's add another one. How about maybe the fill color? So I'll go into RGB. Let's say we want to end with red. So I'll put a keyframe for red, and then I'll go to the beginning, and then we'll change this to maybe to, I don't know, maybe I'll change it to a purple. Let's see what that looks like. As I come in, it's really hard to see because I've got the blur happening so much. So I think I'm going to move the blur and the opacity to the left so that they happen sooner. So take the opacity. I'm going to go to 5 and take the opacity over. And I'm also going to take the blur over, maybe to 10. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. Now let's move the color over. Let's take the color and let's start it over here so that we can see that transition from purple to red a little bit more. Okay. Now let's add another one. Let's have the letters rotate as they come in. For this to work, we have to enable per character 3D. And when we do that, we can add rotation. And because we have 3D, we now have X, Y, and Z. So X is horizontal, this is vertical, and then the Z is forward and back. So closer to the viewer or farther away from the viewer. I want to rotate these on the Y-axis. So when it lands, I want it to be at 0, 0. And then at the beginning, I'm going to set this for 1 rotation. So let's see what that does. As I drag it in, you see it's turning as it comes in. It's all happening too fast. I'm going to slow this way down so that we can see it better. So I'm going to select them all, hold down the Option key, and drag them all out maybe to 1 second. Let's just see if that works better. Okay, I'm getting a weird flashing that I don't like. So I do the rotation. It's going to happen sooner. So maybe the rotation happens in here. Let's see when I play that, what I get. Still getting an odd flashing. Oh, the flashing is because it's rotating around. So when it's directly on facing the camera, it disappears. So that's causing that little flash. So maybe I need to do that rotation sooner so that we don't get that flash. Or maybe I don't really want to do the rotation in this case, but let me try it and see if it makes any difference if I make it a little bit. No, not the opacity. I want the rotation. See if I try that in there. Still creating kind of a flashy look. So maybe in this case I will not do the rotation. Yeah, I think I'll just get rid of the rotation keyframes. But there are times when I really like that effect, but right now I don't like the flashing. Now it's not going all the way around, so I have to fix that. The rotation needs to be 0, 0 at this point, from beginning to end.